It's both. I mean, it's always both. It's
Right.
never this or that.
Sure.
Ever, 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 ever. I got a PhD in this, and we like research scientists study this stuff to a degree that the recreational fitness person will never understand unless
Right.
you've been to school for 12 years,
Sure.
specifically studying one subject.
Right.
And and they never even know the answer ever. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's never one or the other. Hormones matter. They matter immensely. They're super important. But so does the amount of food that you eat
Right.
because that affects your hormones too.
Right.
And your hormones actually affect how much you're going to eat
Right. How much you
because
want to
they,
eat.
yeah, they influence your appetite. They influence your satiety. So they influence whether you feel full from a certain amount of food. And the truth is, you can be super hardcore and disciplined for a while and be like, oh, all right, I'm hungry, but I'm still not going to eat. And you can do that eventually for a while, but eventually you will eat. There will be
Yeah.
strong enough signals that make you eat. You'll have the F it moment
Yeah.
where you're like, I can't hold out anymore. And it usually comes when other lifestyle stressors come in. And this is the gap between nutrition advice and real life, where real human beings have to eat to get better, look better, and feel better. And that gap is wide. It's really wide on the internet. If you're reading stuff on the internet as your only source of this, it's really wide. And that's how people can say things like, well, it's all hormones. You eat as much as you want as long as you control the hormones. The fact of the matter is, no, that's bullshit. A lot of people telling you that don't look any good.
Right.
I've
Right.
seen them. I've met
Yeah.
them. They're chubby, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Likewise, the people who said calories are the only thing that matter, ah, that's not true either. We know that, right?
Right.
Like I've measured obese people who are eating like half of what their basal metabolic rate should even
Right.
be,
Right.
right? So what's happening there? I mean, is it just calories? They're not losing any weight. They're 300 pounds overweight. So it's both. It's absolutely both. How do you unravel the mystery, right? How do you figure out what to do from there? That's the real question. And the real question is, if you're eating a reasonable amount for your body type, total calorie wise, and you're not looking good and it's not working and it's not helping you, there is a hormonal and a metabolic dysfunction happening, and you have to figure out how to fix that. You're probably not going to figure it out on your own. Probably need a little bit of guidance.
Right.
But nevertheless, you look to, is there a deficiency here? That could be the case. Is there hypothalamus issues? That could be the case. And now you start unraveling it, right? Um, at the same token, if your hormones are all looking great and everything, and you still don't look the way that you want to, you could be just overeating, you know?
Right.
So there's definitely both. These things are intertwined, right? So to say it's one or the other is silly because they're part of two sides of a coin,
Sure.
right? Um, but and this is the thing. It makes life easier to pick a camp, right?
Sure. Because then you have like a belief. You don't have to feel like
Yeah.
you're in the gray zone, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and it makes it easier to try and figure out, right? But nothing is ever that simple,
Right.
and it's okay,
It's
right? We
okay.
can, that's the idea that anyone who wants to really dig into this field and understand it and understand their own bodies has to be comfortable with complexity. You just have to say, it's really complex. I don't quite understand it all, but it's all right because there are next actions and I
Right.
can take them. And if they don't work, there's lots of people who know what they're doing, so I can get some guidance. I always look at the self experimentation community that's getting pretty popular right
Right.
now, right? And I think self experimentation is really, really empowering for a lot of people, and I love it. The only issue is that if you're just starting in a field, I'd rather you not do self experimentation. I'd rather you do guided
Guided with somebody who
experimentation.
might have
You know
some
what I mean?
knowledge.
Like, because maybe it's a little safer in nutrition, but let's say you were doing this in chemistry.
Right.
So you're like, man, let's put a little of the red stuff and the blue stuff together and see
Boom.
what happens. Exactly. Whoops. And maybe the next guy won't make that mistake. You know what I mean?
Oh my
So
God.
it's usually helpful if you have someone you can touch base with from time to time. It doesn't have to be a full-blown coach, but just someone who can help guide your pathway. And you don't get that from a book. You don't get that from an article. You get that from a real human relationship with someone.
Yeah. That's fantastic, John. I remember I tell people I always learned everything I know from making dramatic mistakes, right? And
Yeah.
one of the biggest things I learned when I first started nutrition, I remember it was an epiphany moment for me. It was, if I don't eat fat, I can't get fat. Right?
Right.
And so I went out and bought a big bag of gummy worms with zero fat in them. I chowed them down. I was like, I'm on a diet, folks. Right? And
Right.
from there to where I am now is just such a dramatic difference, right? And it's almost like I just really appreciate you saying that, because you have to enjoy the journey. It's not as simple as you make it. And I always tell people, the older I get, the more I realize the less that I know, right? Because it just gets more and more complex. Well, I was going to dig into intermittent fasting, but you have literally the best report on intermittent fasting I've ever read at your website. How can people find that? They can just go check that out if they're really interested in the truth about intermittent fasting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the book does a better job than we could in a short chat for
Sure.
sure. It's called My Experiments with Intermittent Fasting, so people can just Google that and they'll find it, or they could just type in John Berardi intermittent fasting.
Sure.
The book is totally free. It's hosted online, so you can either read it online or you can download it and read it on your Kindle or your iPad or whatever the case may be. There's a bunch of different formats, and they're all free. The idea was, we just, me in particular and Precision Nutrition as a company, we're just really, really interested in putting intermittent fasting and all the different iterations of it for a test drive and see what actually happens when you measure stuff. Not when you just follow it and get all loud about it on the internet, but when you actually measure, when you actually measure stuff and see what happens. So I actually, spent 6 months doing various iterations of intermittent fasting and logging everything from like my mood to my blood work to my body composition changes. I took photos, I posted it all, and and we put it in this free book, and the book is taken off. I mean, there's over 1 million people have checked out the book, so have either downloaded the PDF or read the book online, and so it clearly kind of struck a nerve, and the feedback's been really fantastic. So for those folks who want to check it out, the cool part is on the first page of the book, there's like 3 pathways. If you only have 10 minutes, you can read one part of the book. Right. If you only have 30, you can read another part. If you have about an hour and a half, you can read the whole thing. And then people can sort of get whatever kind of experience they need out of it. So My Experiments with Intermittent Fasting.
I read that cover to cover, like in one shot. I totally did. Somebody emailed me, hey, check this out. What do you think? And I opened it up and I was like, okay, we'll start this out. By the time I was done, I was like, this guy is sharp, right? And so if you guys don't go there and download that, I mean, you got to realize John could sell this thing for $50 online. And sure, he wouldn't sell 1 million copies, but he'd probably sell tens of thousands of copies, right? And he's giving it away for free. So if you guys don't check that out, you're absolutely insane. So John, what do you got down the pipeline, my man? What's experiments are you running right now? Let's finish the call with that, and then maybe, I don't know if you'd be willing to come back a couple months down the road and we could talk just about exercise.
Absolutely, that would be fantastic. Well, we always do, like, intermittent fasting was one of them. We always do a big crazy experiment every year or so. The last one was the one with Nate Green, where we did the Bigger, Smaller, Bigger project. So you guys can Google that if you're interested. And the idea was that, I work with a lot of UFC athletes, and they often, leading up to a training camp, will try and gain muscle. And then during the training camp, they'll try and cut down to make weight, right? And then within the 5 days between their cutting week, they'll try and lose a dramatic amount of weight to make a lower weight class. And then within 24 hours after they've made that weight class, because you weigh in on like a Friday night and you fight on a Saturday night, you try and gain all that weight back. So literally, we wanted to recreate this and measure everything out of the context of a UFC fight, because if you have a fight coming up, you're not going to come to the lab and let me measure all kinds of crazy stuff like peak power output and Tmax and Vmax and all this kind of stuff, right? So Nate Green is one of our team members and well-known writer in the fitness industry, decided he was going to go through it. So the goal was, in 4 weeks, gain 20 pounds of lean mass. In 5 days, lose 20 pounds of lean mass. In 24 hours, gain 20 pounds of lean mass. So it was gain, lose, gain. And it sounds crazy, but honestly, that's less aggressive than what a lot of UFC fighters will do to prepare for fights. So we did the same thing as we did with intermittent fasting. We logged everything. Nate kept the journal. We measured everything. We had photos, we did vertical jump, we did endurance tests, we did strength tests, and you can actually see what happens behind the scenes when this type of thing happens. And even if you're not interested in UFC or weight cutting or that kind of a thing, it's a really fascinating exploration of physiology and body manipulation. So that's one. I've got another really cool experiment going on right now where I have like a portable metabolic cart, and I'm looking at the difference between, let's say, exercising once conventionally as people do it. So like an hour-long session, 20 sets,
Right.
like a strength training session,
Or
versus
partitioning it.
breaking that out into 5 sessions in a day. So 5 4-set sessions,
Sure.
versus breaking out into 21-set sessions.
I like that experiment.
So I'm measuring everything from gas exchange, oxygen, carbon dioxide, which tells us a lot about which fuels you're using and your metabolic rate for the day. I'm measuring core temperature. I'm measuring a whole bunch of variables, appetite and stuff like that. So the end being, is there a substantial difference between working out real short 20 times in a day versus a few small sessions versus one big session? And if so, what's the implication of that? If there's no difference, then one of them makes no sense, right?
Right.
If there is a big difference, then we can actually use that. For example, if it ends up being better to do small sessions throughout the day, maybe really busy people don't have to go to the gym at all. Maybe they can just do one set of something every hour in their cubicle or office at work, or busy moms with young children at home can just literally have the kid in a stroller. I have 2 young kids at home, I know all about this, and bang out a set of air squats once every hour and maybe get the same benefit as a big weightlifting workout at the gym. So we're looking at little things like that, but talk to me next year, we'll have another crazy one going on. So that's some of the cool experiments we have going on. But as a company, I mean, we're basically just continuing to develop our coaching model.
Yeah.
So it's just we continue to work with. Right now, we're working with about 8,000 new clients each year.
Wow.
And refining that. And we do a lot of cool split testing in there. We actually have different clients going through different programs and looking at the different efficacies. So we're actually figuring out what are the common themes that lead to body transformation in a big way. And we started partnering with researchers all over the country to work with special populations. We're working with young adult cancer survivors right now. We're working with diabetics at 2 different universities. The big idea here is that if the fitness industry ever wants to be recognized as a legitimate, viable medical option for people, and this is the way it's going with obesity rates being what they are,
Sure.
we need evidence-based fitness information, and no one's creating that right now.
Yeah.
And we're in a really unique position to be able to work with so many people in a context where we don't actually need government funding to do it. It's self-funding, right? Our subjects are also our clients.
Right.
And so they get in the best shape of their lives, and they also get to participate in large experimental research that is knowledge creating for the rest of the industry. So I'm super pumped about that. And then we have this beautiful sort of cycle. So we learn stuff there, and then we teach it to our certification students. And then our certification students go out and practice it, and we collect data on that. And then that feeds back into our coaching methodology,
Sure.
and we try that stuff. And then that feeds the next level of
Right.
certification. So it's this beautiful spiral that just creates new knowledge and helps everyone get better.
Well, John, I'm super happy to have a guy like you at the forefront who practices what he preaches, who's really sharp, but is able to convey this to the average person as well. So thank you so much for your time, John. We can find you at precisionnutrition.com. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who wants to learn more, just pop over to the website. We have a bunch of free courses right on the homepage. So for men, for women, and for fitness pros. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, just come check us out. You'll find it all right on the homepage, and it's all free.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John.
Okay, thanks for having me.